Karl, so we're about to listen to an episode we interviewed. I was quite fortunate we managed to get Matt and Fred on the podcast. They're our first guests. What kind of stood out from the interview for you?
A couple of things, really. Fred's passion for the game really stands out, and his knowledge of the game within the Midlands. He's got a wealth of experience. He's the sort of people we need to be tapping into, sort of people we need to be speaking to as we go on this podcast journey. And just speaking to Matt, what I found was really interesting is his love for the game. Even though he plays both rugby union and rugby league, he's a sort of a convert as such. And it was really interesting just hearing Matt's thoughts and how he's developed playing rugby league. And the other thing that came from Matt was just the representative rugby side. I think he's incredibly proud of, even though he didn't really want to speak to us about it at first. He's incredibly proud of it, and I think it's something we should champion and something we should be pushing in the Midlands, I think. Yeah,
I think for me what stood out, especially with Matt, was the fact that he was a late starter. He didn't start playing rugby at all until he was like 18. And then, and the other thing that stood out about Matt was it was quite obvious that he came to the game with a completely open mind, no preconceived ideas about what it's going to be and what it is and all that, and just absolutely reaped the benefits. So that was great. And then, Fred, one thing that's always got me about Fred is how much he throws into a game, and he's got no connection other than,
just his love for the game.
Yeah, just his love for the game. It, and it's incredible. And we do, in the episode, we talk about there'll be people all over the Midlands, all over the world that are driving clubs forward and are doing it just for the love of the game. And I think whilst ever those people are out there, one, we need to give them a voice and celebrate them. And two, the sport is in a good state. You know what I mean? It's not in the shit state that we always think it is. So that really stood out for me. So this is the interview with Fred and Matt. Hope you enjoy it, and then we'll catch you at the end. Okay, here we go. So this is the first Rugby League Outsiders podcast. First interview, really, where we've got a couple of guests that we've invited along just to chat through about all things Midlands Rugby League. What are you excited about, Karl?
I'm just excited to get a bit of history about the game and talk to Rugby League legends from the area, really.
Right, so over to you two legends. First of all, there's no way that Karl and I could start a podcast in the Midlands talking about rugby league without inviting Fred along. I think when we was chatting, Karl, you called him Mr. Rugby League in the Midlands.
Mr. Rugby League, the Midlands guru, I think.
Yeah, so
the Rugby
Fred,
League world.
For those people out there that are listening that perhaps don't know anything about you, can you just give us a little down and dirty 2 minutes? What brought you to this podcast today?
Your kind invitation. I am the chairman of the Telford Raiders Rugby League Club. I started with the Raiders in about 2001. Since then, as a enthusiastic parent, soon became a coach, found myself as press officer and then chairman. I sit on something called the Community Board, which is the board that runs or oversees the community game, the rugby league game right throughout the country, that looks after men's open age, women and girls, youth and juniors, armed forces, schools, colleges, universities. I've also been involved over the years with management committees of the Midlands men's and juniors competitions. I don't know whether I set out to do all that things, but I've just fallen into it over the years. I was born in Yorkshire, so I can understand why you two have invited me on. But I was born in Harrogate, the posh part of Yorkshire.
Yeah, just outside Bradford.
Just cut above Bradford and Halifax.
Isn't everything just outside Bradford?
Yeah. I fell in love with rugby league as a teenager. A guy in the village I lived in, who was the local painter, decorator and undertaker, had a very big Granada estate car and stopped at the bench outside the primary school every Sunday dinner time, said, who wants to go and watch the rugby? And filled the back of this estate car. Very often, I think, because he had two very attractive daughters.
I said, would you get away with that these days?
No, definitely wouldn't. No, laying 6 or 7 teenagers just laying in the back of a Granada estate, you wouldn't get away with. I used to go down to Wigginton Road and watch York. And I'd never really been into sport in a big way at all. And suddenly I just saw heroes, very unlikely heroes, one of whom was Gary Hetherington, who played in the York team at that time. And rugby league just became my game. I'd never played it, but I just loved the people involved and the characters you met and the characters on the pitch. And I moved away to Wales to go to agricultural college and suddenly discovered what it was like to be surrounded by people who knew nothing about rugby league. And you couldn't find it in the newspapers, you couldn't see it on the TV, nothing. When I left Wales, I worked for a year in Peterborough, and that was exactly the same. I mean, only a few 100 miles away from the heartlands, and yet nobody knew anything about rugby league. And that was something that was stuck with me for a long time. We lived in the East Riding of Yorkshire for about 20 years, and it was perfect for me because we were just outside Hull, and every Sunday I could either go and watch Hull FC or Hull KR. I didn't support either of them, so I could be critical of both. But I just took rugby league for granted. It was always there. It was on my doorstep. And then in 1999 we moved to Shropshire. I took a job at the local university, Harper Adams University, and suddenly I found myself back like when I was a student in Aberystwyth, surrounded by people who had no idea what rugby league was. A couple of years after we'd moved, somebody said to me one day, "Oh, I think there's a bloke I know. He runs a rugby league team." And I said, "No, it'd be rugby union in this area." "No, I think it might be rugby league. He's from Hull." I thought, that's interesting. And then my son Jack was at primary school in Telford here, and came home one day very excited to tell me that there was a lad at school whose family supported Warrington. So I sent Jay and my wife to school the next day, said, find his mum, have a conversation. And this lady said, "Oh yeah, there is a little rugby league team." They were called the Rugby Raiders. Randley's a sort of suburb of Telford. And we went along, met Dave and Janet Berry, who were running this little club. Mostly teenagers. Jack was only probably 8 at this time. And Dave said, "Well, if you want him to play, you'll have to become a coach." So I became a coach. And stop me when I've rambled too much.
But there's so much to pick out of this, though. Usually when you talk about settling down, no rugby league. I think I've experienced that. No doubt you've experienced it. So we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
But carry on. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So Dave and Janet had run a primary schools competition. It's called the Rico Mini League here in Telford, and there was about 5 or 6 primary schools involved in it. But the age-old story, they started to run out of volunteers to be able to do that, and eventually it became just amalgamated into this one team, Rugby Raiders. And they took them all over the place to try and find games, but it was very, very difficult to find games for them. And then every year they used to run a trip to the grand final. And in 2002, autumn of 2002, we were on a coach going up to Old Trafford, and Dave just sort of leant over the seat. He was sitting in front of him, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I've entered us for the Rugby League Conference." And I put you down as press officer, Fred. And a guy called John Broadhead who was with us, oh, and John, you're the treasurer. I said, oh, okay. As I say, roles that you didn't look for, but you just found. And so we had a bunch of lads who were 16, all going into open age. And then out of the woodwork started to appear guys who said, oh, I used to play. Turns out there used to be a team in Telford called the Wellington All Blacks, run by a bloke called Frank Verity, a guy from Widnes. And some of the guys who played for him previously started to reappear. And in 2003, as Telford Raiders, we kicked off our first season. And the rest, as I say, is history.
The rest is history. And now we're celebrating, Telford Raiders are celebrating 20 years of senior rugby now. So from that small idea has become a successful club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting how many of the teams we played at that time are still around. So we have seen clubs come and go in the Midlands, but our first game was against Birmingham Bulldogs, and they're still around. We played Nottingham Outlaws, and they're still around. Coventry Bears, and they're still around.
Do you know which is the oldest club in the Midlands at the minute? I think Birmingham were going before Telford, weren't they?
Yeah, Birmingham, definitely. There was something called the Midlands and South Western Rugby League Association, Redditch Halcyon, who have gone through a number of
rebrands.
Rebrands, and now I guess we'd call them the New Ravens.
Yeah.
They're possibly the oldest. Birmingham Bulldogs will be one of the oldest.
I think Cov Bears, 25 years have they been going?
25 years, yeah. So Cov were a few years before us. And then there's a list of teams that perhaps are no longer around or have become other things. So I'm
sure as we delve through the episodes, we'll discover which teams been going the longest.
All right. I mean, great. And there's so much that we'll come on and talk to you there. Yeah. That's great. So moving on to you, Matt. I know you've been sat there quietly minding your own business.
Quite impressed with what Fred's been saying. I'm going to say, I mean, great to be here. So thanks for the invite. A bit like what Fred was saying, really. I mean, I didn't even know there was a rugby league side. I lived on Brookside. I was born in Dudley, moved across when I was 2 years of age. Lived on Brookside, which is literally a stone's throw from Ranelagh. Didn't even know there was a rugby league team. I've always been interested in sports since I was a young age. Never really rugby. I probably started rugby when I was about 18. So it was swimming, bit of football, not the greatest. And then moved into athletics. And it was at that point where there was another lad who was doing pole vault with myself. And it was more about going up to the rugby union side. So we went up there, he said, come up, give it a go. So that's what I did. Didn't even know about any rugby league at that point until I think I was down at Oakengates where the athletics track was one day. And I saw all these lads getting changed. I thought, I wonder what's going on. So before I sort of went and did my event, I sort of had a walk around because I think the home games were based at Oakengates, weren't they? Oakengates, and nice little slope on the hill. But so I went over there, had a look around, and saw this team. I thought, that seems pretty good. Summer sport, ideal, nice and warm. So I sort of pondered a little bit, and then decided I'd sort of go at one training session. Walked up there, had a look, and I know Fred sort of said Dave Berry. Dave Berry was the first guy to come over, very friendly, made everyone welcome.
What year was this, Matt?
It was probably around 2003. It's similar sort of time, really. Like I say, I didn't start rugby until I was 18, so I wasn't doing it as a junior, weren't doing it as any sort of teenager or anything like that. So quite a late starter. But I thought, I love rugby union. I thought it was good. But rugby league, watching it, I saw quite a few games on TV. I thought that appeals to me. But everyone thought it's a northern game. That's where it came from. There weren't many teams in the south, for example, which was quite disappointing. But when I heard about Telford, I thought, okay, go give that a go. And like I say, the rest is history. It's been playing now 20 odd years, on and off, union and then league over the summer. So I think my body's pretty much given up on me at the moment, but I'm still going.
You've missed out a very important detail over there, haven't you, Matt? Who else have you played for or represented, should I say?
So, I mean, we talk about rugby league in the Midlands, and obviously when I was around that age when I first started, I also broke my leg as well. So, and I think that year I was due to go for trials for the England Lionhearts. So that was a little spanner in the works, really. So I had to sort of recover from my broken leg, come back. And at that time, there was quite a lot of sort of clubs in the Midlands, which was really good. There was a great setup. We had the South of England, we had the Midland squad. I remember every single year there used to be trials to go to the England Lionhearts. Loads of different regions would turn up to this competition. We would play that competition, and then it was just fantastic. Clubhouse afterwards, and they're reading names out, going, okay, well, this guy's been selected for the England Lionhearts, this guy's been selected, and you literally sat there on tenterhooks, just waiting for your name to be read out. And I remember the first time, and I just couldn't believe it. It was, wow, it was such an achievement.
Wearing that England badge is... Wearing that England badge,
isn't
it?
It
doesn't matter what
amateur.
sport it's in. You know, you getting to say that you've represented your country it's massive. I would have thought.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, after that, I think it was probably about 20 caps. I think it was since that year. So every year play for the England Lionhearts, which was good. They also had the Midland squad as well. So every year play for the Midlands. We'd have the South of England versus the North. That was quite a good game because it was. Everyone thinks the North, brilliant, great rugby league, but every time they played the South, they always lost. So it just shows the talent that there is in the South of England, really, and it's just trying to get that talent out. But I just remember the days and the trials, and it was just brilliant. And I'd travel all over the country. Just sort of had our youngest one as well, which obviously didn't go down well at home because it's like, I've got to go travel up to here for a training session or down there for a training session. So that was quite hard. But obviously you only get one opportunity, like you say, Karl, to play for your country. And it's, it is amateur, but it's still standing up, representing your country, listening to the national anthem before the game. It's just magical, really was. So I enjoyed every single minute of that. And then following on from that, there was an opportunity, well, not an opportunity, but we had the Four Nations, and I think it was when I was about 35, so I'm, quite late, quite old. But obviously then selected for the Great Britain Lions for their tour over in France. So that was just another level. And I remember going to the training session. I think there was 4 of us from the south of England, and then obviously the rest were for the north of England. So there was a couple of training days up north. But I remember going to the sort of first training session. It was full on, and I'm talking. You're talking about a different level. You've got these guys, and I think I was quite fit. I thought I was, but I was literally probably about half a metre off the pace at that time. So it was quite a good experience. Great coaches. And it was just good to see what other talents around there as well. So that was another achievement going over there. Unfortunately, we got beat when we went over there, but just being there was amazing. And then had another GB against Dewsbury, I think it was, and that was it. That was another trial game, but it was lifetime opportunity that I'll never forget. So
fantastic.
Yeah, and now I'm just old.
Now we're doing this, so
I know.
Now you get to share your story. Fred, I'll bring you in here. You might be able to answer me in a bit something Matt's touched upon. Midlands trials, going into England lineouts. I mean, I've been playing in the Midlands for sort of 10 years. I think the Midlands team was sort of dying a little bit then. I don't think it's really existed for a number of years. Do you know if that's something that's going to be coming back?
I think it's something that's definitely been spoken about at the moment. It was always really, really popular. I remember Matt's been very modest when he says that he was amazed when he got selected. Having been at some of those trial days, it was pretty obvious he was going to get selected to me. But yeah, great days when we'd all rock up in, I don't know, Nottingham, and there'd be a London team and a East of England team and a West of England team and the Midlands team, and it was great. There was some really good rugby, some really good players, but it was also that sense of what we were speaking about at the beginning, Rugby League Outsiders in this area. Nobody knows what Rugby League is, and yet there's hundreds of people here on this day who not only know what Rugby League is, but are really passionate about it, and they were really great days. Those kind of opportunities, I think, are really important, and I think we will see them return. We've had a funny few years, haven't we, with pandemics that have disrupted a lot of things. We have had quite a few Telford players who have gone with the Midlands team on tour to Russia, Greece and Spain. And whilst those teams aren't the greatest performance teams you'll ever see, I think the important thing is, for me, what community sport about is giving people opportunities.
Absolutely.
Giving people opportunities to create memories and lifetime memories and create lifetime friendships. I'm a big believer in rep rugby because I think it actually helps when you've got a bunch of clubs who are competing against each other all season long, and then you bring some of those guys together to create a team. I think it just gives a better feel. So the whole competition the next year, you rock up at the clubhouse and you bump into somebody you played with for the rep team, and you've got stories to share and memories to have.
Playing against somebody that you've played with, it becomes not state of origin but it gives it an added level to it, doesn't it?
It does.
But it is that rugby family, isn't it? And we talk about that all the time. And the amount of times, not just at regional, but you can be out anywhere and you'll bump into someone at a stadium. I remember, I think we were playing Cov Dragons one day, and I think it was one of the finals, and I literally went out to a concert at Wolverhampton Racetrack, and there was about 5 or 6 Cov Dragons players there. So you literally
did they talk to you?
Yeah, they did.
It's surprising because it was quite a game. That was.
It was a good game.
But that's rugby, isn't it, Karl?
Yeah, it is.
You can knock 7 bells out of each other, and then and then you do talk to each other. So
that's what I like about it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And touching on what we talked, the representative side. The Harry Jepson Trophy's coming back this year, I believe. I've seen a few press snippets.
Yeah, I believe that will be a very welcome return to the Harry Jepson at the end of this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't quite know what that format's going to be.
No, it's not been announced, has it yet?
We know certainly from our experiences at Telford that means an awful lot.
So what is it if you got beginners and
so the Harry Jepson Trophy in the past was played by the top teams in each regional league in a knockout, and so we'd include the East of England, London, South West, the West, the Midlands, the North East. So those kind of non-traditional rugby league competitions areas, and it was a knockout competition with a really good finals day and a real prestige about getting there and playing in it. And I think, again, one of the things that something like that does is it gives you the opportunity to go and play against somebody that you've not played against before. When we have fairly small regional leagues, we tend to play the same clubs all the time. Yeah. And I think that it's okay, but you can get a bit stale. But with things like representative rugby or with the Harry Jepson end of season tournament, it creates a bit of excitement about playing against different people or with different people or what have you. And we've certainly had some very memorable days. I remember one not long after Matt started playing for us when we ended up in Cardiff.
Yeah, it was
got absolutely battered by Cardiff Demons. Long coach journey to get there, and even longer coach journey on the way back.
But it was good experience, though. It was really good. Yeah.
Exactly, and the guys who played in that game, hopefully we'll get together in this year of our 20th anniversary of Telford Raiders and reminisce and laugh about.
Freddie, are you doing with it being the 20-year anniversary of Telford Raiders? Have you got anything planned to kind of mark that occasion, or what are you looking forward to in this season coming up?
Personally, having taken a step back from coaching the first team, I'm really looking forward to
having a
watching
break.
Phil Kavanagh, who's taken over as our first team coach. Great coach, a lot of experience in the game, from his roots in Cumbria through to being heavily involved in RAF Rugby League. I'm really looking forward to just being able to stand on the touchline and watch and not be worrying about has he taken a knock or have we got enough subs left or whatever it is. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to having some celebrations or marking in some way the fact that we are in our 20th season. We're working on a number of things. I would love to see a lot of the ex-players back. Maybe we can have some sort of a function, but we've got nothing definite as yet. But we certainly will mark it. And again, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. It's about those friendships and relationships and memories. It's looking back to that bus to the grand final in 2002 when Dave Berry said, I've entered in the Rugby League conference. Did we think we'd still be around in 20 years? Did we think we'd have all the memories that we've got, all the ex-players that we've got, all the stories that we've got? No, I didn't even contemplate that we would still be doing it. And so, it's definitely worth celebrating. And I keep looking across to our marketing manager, Karl Walker, who will, I'm sure, help to push that 20th anniversary.
But that 20 years didn't come without you and obviously your wife Jane for obviously coach, admin. You literally ran the club.
Shirt washer, training.
It was everything.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon.
No.
I think in every community club, whether it be rugby league or football or cricket, you will find those people who do that stuff because clubs wouldn't exist. So, those people exist in Nottingham Outlaws and Coventry Bears just as much as they do at Telford Raiders. And, I'm not a fool. I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it. Jane, my wife, will tell you that she doesn't really like rugby, but has happily washed shirts or fixed busted knees or
collect subs
or whatever. So we do actually like rugby, and but it's not always easy. We've had ups and downs. I think the important thing is for any community club, and there'll be people hopefully listen to this who are running community clubs, you have to take the ups and the downs. But it will always be worth it. It will always be worth it. We've done so much in 20 years. It's I wouldn't do it if I wasn't getting something.
Well, I did when I joined the club a few years ago and had a couple of seasons where I was blown away because I was like, well, I don't understand what you're getting from it apart from a lot of stress. Your lad had moved on, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So it's not like you were a parent facilitating their kids playing. It was admirable, really. Should give you a little round of applause on the podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
But no, it definitely needs some recognition. And like you said, every club's probably got a Fred.
Every club has. Ron Banks and Alan Robinson at Cov Bears drove that club along to incredible heights. And
how much like chat do you have between the clubs then, as like a chairman?
I think we have good relationships. Yeah. Obviously, geographically, we're quite widely spread.
Yeah.
In the last few years, we've learnt about things like Teams and FaceTime, so we are able to have meetings and talk to each other. Something I would like to encourage is having better communication between clubs and cooperation. Competition's on the pitch. Yeah. We need to cooperate off the pitch because we all need to be surrounded by other strong clubs. It's no good having one incredibly strong club and everyone else just drops out of the competition because they can't cope. We all need to help each other. And back in the days of the Rugby League Conference, every year we used to have a conference where all the clubs, I think there was probably about 60, 70 clubs in the Rugby League Conference at that time, would get together and they'd share best practice. You know, we'd talk to each other about what grant funding we'd got or how we raise money, how we run our raffle or we run our lottery or, you know, how we work with the press and do our publicity. And I think we've lost that a bit. So certainly within the Midlands community and I'm sure across the south of England, I'd like to see people share knowledge and information. And I would like to think that this podcast...
Exactly. I was going to say, this podcast could be the sort of thing that we can, as clubs around the Midlands, we can help grow. Craig, you gave me a comment the other day when we was talking, something about raising the ship or something.
So we was chatting about like what do we want to do with this podcast? What's the aim going to be? And so a couple of things, like there's two quotes that stand out in my mind, and I think it just sums it up perfectly. And one is, a rising tide lifts all ships, you know, and I think if you can raise the profile of every club, you know, get every player excited. You know, we've just been speaking about the great work you've done, Fred, and we've celebrated your representative rugby. There's a load of players out there that've done some great stuff and will go on to do great stuff, and perhaps this is a platform to celebrate that. And then the other one is that, you know, the strength of a wolf is the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf. As individuals, we're strong with the other clubs around us, and with all the clubs around us, we're strong as individuals. And you know, that's where it needs to be, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know, like you say, you need a strong competitive league where everyone's cooperating, like you're saying. And that'll give us great competition on the pitch. Yeah,
it's also promotion, though, isn't it? You're promoting the game, you're promoting rugby league, and I think that's where it needs to go. I mean, Carl's done a great job, hasn't he, this year? I think we've already signed 30-plus players at Telford, just at Telford. So if every club can get around this and look at these podcasts and do the same for their club, it'll just lift everything again. But like it was years and years ago, which is great.
I think with the social media side of it as well is people are all looking at each other. So,
they are,
you know, somebody might be looking at Telford and think, oh, they're doing that. Leamington for years have always had very good promotion. So we looked up to them and we sort of said, well, you know, we need to be sort of doing what Leamington are doing there, bringing in plenty of players. I've noticed Birmingham have started promoting themselves online a little bit more. So, yeah, it's Nottingham. They're fantastic at it. And that goes to show the strength of their club because I don't know how many players they're turning out each season, but I can imagine it's a fair few. So it's the same thing. And if we have one strong club, we've got a load of strong clubs. They all take themselves up together. Being a Bradford fan, I didn't want to talk about Bradford on this podcast, but
he will anyway.
But I am going to do. And I know Craig's a Leeds fan. Leeds Rhinos, to benefit Leeds Rhinos, they needed a successful Bradford because it raised the profile of the Rhinos, it raised the profile of, and when you start losing those rivalries, it's exactly the same thing. It's you lose your tendencies, you lose your cash flow, it's exactly the same thing. So we, in the Midlands, I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to create some strong rivalries on the pitch. And like Fred said, but as a community, we need to be raising each other and raising the profile of the game, really.
Yeah.
So, Fred, looking back at like rugby league in the Midlands, what are the strengths that the Midlands have got when it comes to rugby league? I know I've just completely thrown that on you, but
No. Obviously, we've referred to it across a lot of clubs, and I've just realised that one club I've forgot to mention is Derby. Derby
Of
were
course, yeah.
around certainly long before us. They might be. Have you got a comments box or something where people can?
there'll be wherever you're listening
were-
to this, there'll be a
We are
comments
the
box.
oldest club in the Midlands. So the strength is some really great organisers, and I think that when you're having to fight tooth and nail just to survive all the time, it tends to develop administrators who have really good out of the box, ideas, and when you're constantly having to work to find your next set of players, you get quite good at it. Whereas if, no disrespect, but if you're at Wigan St Pat's, you don't have to go and find players.
No, they just
turn up.
Yeah.
So I think we do develop good administrators, and I think that's really important. I think the other thing is, what I've always said is, just because you're in Shropshire or Nottinghamshire or Derbyshire, there's no reason why you can't play rugby league. You don't have to have been born in Yorkshire or Lancashire to play rugby league, and there are some fantastic, talented athletes around. One sitting next to me now who could play rugby league as well as anybody. If Matt had started playing rugby league when he was 10 years old, God knows how far we could have gone. But there are great players in the Midlands as well. I think that's, a great strength as well.
I think, one of the things we could talk about, I suppose, is what's the bit. We're obviously surrounded by a lot of rugby union clubs in the Midlands. How difficult, I'll fire this one at you, but how difficult do you think it is for a rugby union player to transition into a rugby league player?
The basic skills are probably there. It is difficult because obviously there's different rules, playing the ball, getting markers involved. Fitness is a whole different level because it's constantly shuttles there and back all the time. So, it is difficult. There's quite a few lads at the uni club at the moment who are asking about rugby league, but I don't know the rules. So it's just learning a different game. That's all it is. The skill sets are still there, but
in my eyes, rugby league's a simpler game than rugby union.
It is. I agree.
The transition from going to being a rugby league player to going to play rugby union is
totally
a lot more difficult.
Well, there's more technical positions, aren't there? Like scrummages, line-outs, lifters, jumpers, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so you haven't really got that in rugby league. Like I say, the only difficult aspect of rugby league is just how you play the ball, how you wrap a man in a tackle, two-man tackle, that sort of thing. So... and I think what you're going to find is you're probably going to get more and more union players move into rugby league, especially with the new laws that have come out as well. So,
do you want to just touch on that?
Yeah. So I think it's from July. There's a new sort of tackle rule coming out where it's literally below the waist. So there's quite a few clubs, quite a few people, especially within the Telford area. And it's probably the same across all clubs at the moment. It's going to change the game. Because we're talking about health and safety. Is it really a health and safety issue? If people are tackling, no, there's knees to the head, that sort of thing. So there might be more injuries that way. Players have got to learn a different way to tackle. Because quite a lot of people go high, like we do in rugby league. You wrap the ball up. It'll benefit offloaders all the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to cause, even for referees as well, at that sort of level, and we're talking sort of Premiership down as well, so it's grassroots rugby, that sort of thing. So I know as youngsters we always said, okay, you've got to tackle low and you've got to do this, but as you get older, you want those big hits, you want those big tackles, you want to stop the offloading game, that sort of thing. So I think it'll be difficult, be challenging.
Do you think people have played rugby union for a lot of years? Now these new rules are coming in union. Do you think it's potentially going to drive more people towards league?
I think it will. personally. I mean, if you just look at our club, Telford, for example, I mean, we've had quite a lot of players from Telford Hornets who have signed for Telford Raiders over the past 4 or 5 weeks. You've got other people talking about it.
Yeah, Eccleshaw, Market
Drayton, they're exactly the same. When we had some of those players, didn't we, quite a few years back as well, that would travel all the way from Market Drayton for a game of rugby league. So we're going to get more and more of that, I think, and that's what we need to push, really. I mean, it's great for the game, great for rugby league. It's just brilliant. I think just touch on that as well. And I know we spoke about, obviously we've got these clubs, but I think we need to look at, I mean, we talk about union sides and stuff, but you talk about junior setup as well, and I think that's key and that's important. So, I mean, it sort of begs the question, doesn't it, really, in terms of how we sort of promote the junior section a little bit more as well. And because you've got that level, I remember years ago we had a great junior section, 16s, didn't we, teams like that. So, and they were in their own leagues, etc. So we need to try and build it up again and obviously bring those young kids through as well. So there's different ways of doing it and promoting the game, I guess. And that'll be the same for every single club. I remember junior games when obviously my lad, when he was younger, and there's a few others who have got lads as well, and we used to travel up north and play rugby league games up there as well. So it needs to develop again as well. So that's just another route, really, in terms of, and I know Fred, you ran a great junior section at the Telford Raiders, and it's still going as well now. So, and if all clubs could do that as well, then we've also got the union side, senior players coming across, and then you've also got the junior sections that are moving up as well. I mean, I've got a few Colts under 18s who are already asking about joining the Rugby League side next year. So it's good. Marketing's there. People are asking questions. But yeah, it'll benefit players as well. I remember, even the tackle game, I think we had a few players move from union over to league. They couldn't tackle at all when they're playing rugby union. Spent the season playing rugby league, came back, never missed a tackle. So there's different skill sets that you're going to learn as well from rugby league as well, which benefits the players, gives you a lot of fitness over the summer as well if you just sat around doing nothing.
So they can intertwine quite nicely, can't
they?
They
do.
Is what
I'm saying, yeah, and it does. I mean, the skill sets are all going to be the same, catch, pass, that sort of thing. But it is like you say earlier, Karl. It's a simple game to learn.
I remember when I moved down here before I started playing league. I'd played league all my life, and when I moved down here, I started playing union. To varying degrees of success, really. I could do the basics that rugby league taught me. I could tackle hard and I could pass, and my ball skills were up there. But picking up the actual the rules and the different skills you need to play rugby union took me years. I mean, I was chucked in at playing 9. The first thing they kept saying to me was, "You're playing too fast. You need to slow down." Or what are you getting involved in that ruck for? You step away, and I sort of had to when I was playing, I had to teach myself not to get involved.
Yeah,
which I thought was the strange thing. Whereas I think rugby union going into league, because the skills the sport is more basic, in my opinion. I think people should be able to pick it up a lot quicker.
But you say, you say about union as well. If you look at rugby union now and the way that's developed, you've got a lot of rugby league coaches who are going over to rugby union now, working on defence, that sort of thing. I mean, look at the England setup at the moment. I mean, Kevin Sinfield's over there now. He's an ex-rugby league player. Most of the moves now, you're talking about lead and trails, that sort of thing. So they're starting to pick up because, to me, rugby league, I would say you've got to be more skillful because you've got 6 players
I would agree.
to score a try, and you've got to create that space. And I think that's what union clubs are looking at as well now. So it does develop that side of the of rugby union as well. So it's benefits both.
I think one of the things that's really important is that people have the opportunity to play both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've always had the attitude that if somebody comes and gives league a go and they don't like it, that's fine. You don't do things that you don't enjoy. But what I'm desperate is to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to try it. over the time I've been coaching, I've seen players come from Union with, who I've been told are really good Union players, and they just haven't been able to transition. And I've seen players come from Union who, people said, oh, he's not that good, and actually they've been brilliant rugby league players. Yeah. It's just about giving people the opportunity to find the game that suits them. And I've never been precious about it. If you come and give it a go and it's not for you, that's fine. I just want to give you the opportunity to try it.
How many players have you seen, anyone really, that's come across from Union, tried league and not enjoyed it? Because I don't think I've met many.
No, I haven't.
I can think of one or two, and on the whole, they're guys who were very good rugby union players.
Were they on the larger side, Fred?
No. I can remember one fullback coming to us who had a really good reputation, and he was just so uncomfortable having to get to grips with a completely new game.
Yeah.
That actually it wasn't for him. It was just easier to concentrate on the game he knew. So some people like that challenge of learning new skills, and it's like a cricketer starting to play baseball.
Yeah.
It's a ball.
If that guy really wants to push himself, then he'll stick with it. But if you're uncomfortable, you'll just go back to the thing you're comfortable with. And I say that's fine. The only thing that I've really struggled with in the past is when people have said, "Oh no, rugby league's rubbish. Don't want to play rugby league," but they haven't given it a go. Mm. If you give it a go and say, no, it's not for me, that's fine. But
it's a great game.
The important thing is that we have clubs and we have opportunities for people to try it.
It's funny, we were chatting the other day, and I was sort of, when you're talking about, you talk about league to people that are predominantly union or in areas, and I've played here in the Midlands, I played down in the southwest, played all over. And you talk to people who play rugby league, like, oh, bloody, all that wriggling around on the floor, what's all that about, and that's always been, well, I can't say it's always been, but it's mostly been for people that have never tried it, never played it, and then there's a difference then. Someone comes and plays and they're like, that's, it's hard work, you're constantly moving, there's no hiding on the wing, all that kind of stuff, and they don't say that once they've tried it. So
if we're all in agreement, 4 of us here, if we can get people playing the game,
they'll enjoy it.
We know they're going to enjoy it.
And I think
so. What's our blueprint in the Midlands to grow the game further than we have? We've got 10 clubs at the minute, something like that, around the Midlands. Possibly more than that. But what you better answer this, Craig. What's your plan, your blueprint to help grow the game in the community around here?
I think first and foremost is promoting the game.
Yeah.
And that is so much, I won't say easy. We have the tools to do that now. We're sat here doing this.
Yeah.
We all have access to social media. We are able to promote the game. It's not 20 years ago when we joined the Rugby League Conference, it was persuading the sports editor on our local newspaper to take our match reports. Yeah. And they did, or they didn't, or they couldn't be bothered, or they missed 1 week. Now we can do those ourselves, through magical ways that are a complete and utter mystery to a 64-year-old bloke like me. But no, I'm 62. 62-year-old bloke like me. We can do that, and if everyone joins in and does that.
I suppose all clubs are in charge of their own destiny now, aren't they?
Exactly. So we've got those tools available to us. I think we have to be positive about the game. And unfortunately, Rugby League has something in its DNA.
Well, it's full of Northerners.
It's full of Northerners.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you doing? Not bad. How bad do you want it?
Yeah. Could be bad. Yeah. I think we just have to be positive all the time. I'm always an optimist. my very good friend from Nottingham Outlaws, Joe Shepherd, has a great saying about polishing a turd, and I think that's what we have to do, you know. So we have to be positive about it. And I think collectively, we have the responsibility to look after all the clubs, not leave anybody behind, but also to challenge ourselves to say, well, what have we done to help a new club get established? What can we do to make sure that we don't weaken an existing club?
Rather than self-interest.
Yeah. Competition is on the pitch.
Yeah.
Off the pitch, we have to work together. We have to cooperate and help each other. When we get somebody who's showing an interest in the game, whether that's an individual player or whether that's a potential new club, we have to be 100% supportive of them.
Well, Karl and I have got a bit of an idea of what we want to do with this. Mm-hmm. What would you like other clubs, players, fans, parents, whoever, to do with this or to get from this, from your position of being involved in Midlands Rugby League for as long as you have?
I think it can be a great promotional tool, and I think it can be. You've given an open invite to anybody who wants to come along and
well, no more Bradford fans. That's the real.
No, I can understand that.
One's enough.
But yeah, to promote their club, to promote the game. If everyone embraces that, and we can have a vibrant community of rugby league people across the Midlands, then that can only be a positive. And I would urge people to get involved. Support each other. There's some great stories out there. I'm not going to name names and put pressure on people and say, oh, you really ought to come and sit on Craig's sofa with a microphone in your face. But there's lots of people who've got fantastic stories, lots and lots of great ideas, great opinions, and we need to give them air, give them a platform, and as I say, most important is to build that community. And going back to the conversation we had about rep rugby and the benefits of that, you bring people from all sorts of clubs and they build relationships and make friendships, and that's a positive. We need to do that with our clubs and with our administrators and help each other, because a strong Telford is no good at all if Birmingham and New Ravens and Derby aren't strong as well. So we all need to be helping each other, and this kind of podcast is one vehicle for doing that. Just simple things like retweeting each other's tweets. Is that the right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sharing,
sharing, liking. It's dead simple things that don't take any time or any effort, but
click of a button,
help to promote the game. And of course, we want to promote our own clubs, but I would urge people to also promote the game and the many varied forms of the game. Okay, so I will bang on about the fact that we've got open age players and youth and junior players, but actually we've also got touch players at Telford.
Yeah.
As a 20-year-old club, we should have a masters team. I'm looking at Craig again and Matt. Yeah.
Don't look at me. I'm retired yet.
You were talking about wheelchair earlier, Karl. So,
yeah.
You're
skipping masters.
That's the next one.
Well, there we go. Women and girls, wheelchair. One team clubs don't have a future. You need the depth. We all need to build our clubs into little communities that are all part of a bigger rugby league community, and that's the strength. And it doesn't happen overnight. Last season, I had my first team, father and son, playing on the same team together. Fantastic moment, but that has taken 20 years. Most of our local sports clubs, local cricket clubs, will have fathers and sons who've played, or grandfathers and fathers and sons who've played. that doesn't happen overnight. And as we said, perhaps the oldest rugby league community club in the Midlands is 25, 30, 40 years old. I mean, we're still in our infancy. So we have to keep building that community and realise that it takes time. It's never an quick fix. And the clubs that come in that are quick fixes tend to go out just as quickly.
I mean, you talk about best practice, isn't it? And it's getting people on these podcasts speaking about the difficulties that they've had setting clubs up. I mean, you've done it for 20 years. I mean, it takes a lot. And there might be people out there who are scared to do that. They want to do that, but they just don't know how to start that process. Like you say, it is difficult when you got a small town. You got a couple of clubs who want to set up in that small town rather than coming together. But it is down to everyone to talk about that and pass their ideas. And like you say, it's all about promotion, marketing, that sort of thing. And it is a wider community.
Well, hopefully we can grow this podcast, create a community of people, and if anybody is wanting to set up a rugby league team or a girls team or a wheelchair team, or hopefully we'll better get the contacts together and we can help it go. Just touching on the Rugby League World Cup, you mentioned the wheelchair. Do you know of any wheelchair teams that have set up in this area, either?
Well, I think England played at Lilleshall, did they?
The nearest two, to my knowledge, there's one in Hereford,
right,
Herefordshire, and then North Wales. But I think those are the nearest two to where we're sitting right now. But what a great!
I'm sure if anybody,
what a great sport.
I'm sure if anybody is out there watching this podcast and they are interested in getting a wheelchair team set up, get in touch with us, and it'd be something we'd be happy to promote.
Yeah.
As well as the women's game, which is going from strength to strength again at the minute on the back of the World Cup. I think they're potentially two of our biggest areas that we can grow as a sport. The women's team, the women's rugby, and the wheelchair rugby could be huge in the next couple of years. So that's what I'm hoping anyway.
And again, a great illustration of how important just positive promotion of the game is. Positive role models, lots of potential wheelchair athletes who would have seen the wheelchair Rugby League World Cup and thought, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Lots
of women and girls who will watch the Women's World Cup who will think, actually, I could have a go at that. It's really, really important. But we can do that at a local level as well. We can make sure that people are aware of the superstars that we have in our community game, guys who are never going to be Super League players, but are very good athletes playing a good standard of rugby. We should promote them as well, so that another junior is going to say, yeah, I could be like
Matt Evans playing for GB Lions.
Well, look, we're going to. We've been rattling on for quite a while now, so we're going to start to bring it to an end. One of the things that we're going to do regularly is we're going to ask guests to pose a question for the next guest. We'll do it off air, so they don't know what it is. So we'll get a couple of questions off you two once we've finished for guests in the future. Maybe Coach Phil, and so think about that. But obviously we haven't had a guest before, so my question to you both, just to get a bit of discussion going, is who is your favourite player? Across all competitions, all eras, all ages, the player that kind of stands out for you. It was Fred.
Oh, wow. What a question. Do you remember when I said I fell in love with watching York Wasps at Wigginton Road in York? There was a prop forward who was very definitely a 1970s prop forward, probably as wide as he was tall, called Billy Harris. And he was just my absolute hero. And he always played with a smile on his face. I hate these questions, Craig, because I could name 1,000.
Yeah, well,
but overall, Eloy Hanley. For me, I've not seen a better player his charisma was incredible. You know, his will to win, his ability. Yeah, you know, for me, he's the player that excited me most at a time when perhaps we really needed some superstars. You know, but ask me tomorrow and I'll say something different. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Hanley he broke the mould, and he was something special, and I'm sure lots of people who've come along since Hanley were inspired by him. I'm sure they were. So Billy Harris and Ellery Hanley, never before mentioned in the same sentence.
Go on then, Matt.
Yeah, see, mine's not going back too far in, to be honest. But even I'm old. I'm going to say, I mean, when I've been playing, I'd say probably Jamie Peacock. Similar sort of position to me. When I was playing, I used to love watching his skill sets, tackles, everything. But there's so many players out there, and I'm showing my age now because I'll probably forget loads of names, but there's loads. But yeah, I think Jamie Peacock's the one for me really, which I sort of studied quite a lot when I was playing the game. It was, great.
He was late to the game as well, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, you're next.
Well, that's easy. Mine's Jamie Peacock.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, you know, every time he talks, I just listen to what he's got to say. He wrote a book called No White Flag. I think that was it?
Yeah.
And it's the epitome of any rugby league player, just not surrendering, not backing down. And that's how he played the game, and that's what I respected, like that resilience. So, yeah, definitely Jamie Peacock for me. And he Leeds and Bradford, wasn't he?
Yeah. Made in Bradford. I think it's actually from Leeds, isn't it? Came through Bradford Academy though, didn't he? Mine then, I think it's fairly obvious. I think the moment I properly fell in love with rugby league was 96 Challenge Cup final, Robbie Paul scoring hat-trick, and he fist pumped to the crowd. That was the minute I properly fell in love with rugby league. So I've got to say Robbie Paul. I think he was a good role model on and off the pitch as well. Yeah. Right, so I know this is the bit Craig's been most looking forward to doing. Super League predictions times. So I'll go through the fixtures this week, the ones I'm going to pick out, and then you guys are going to tell me who's going to win. We're going to take a tally and see who comes out victorious.
We don't have to predict scores, do we?
No, I think that'd be a bit too difficult. It can be hard enough to pick a winner sometimes. So, Warrington versus Leeds. First game, Thursday night Super League game. Leeds not looking great this year. Well, certainly not in pre-season. They haven't been too good. Warrington, will it be their year?
Always their year.
Yeah, Warrington's year this year. They have made some good signings. Josh Drinkwater is going to be the big signing, I think. See how he'll link up with George Williams. So, Warrington, Leeds. Go on, Craig, you can go first.
I just desperately want Leeds to win. Of course I do. But they're away at Warrington, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think Warrington have got something to prove this year. So I think it's going to be a narrow Warrington win. But I desperately want Leeds to win.
I'm going Warrington win, definitely. I think Leeds tend to start slow.
Yeah, I agree. I'd go Warrington. Leeds, back end of the season, maybe.
Yeah. Fred?
The only thing about Warrington is that every year they pile the pressure on themselves. You know?
Yep.
It's always going to be their year. They've spent heavily again. Whether they've got the players who can deal with that pressure will be key, because I think that's what's tripped them up for the last few years, is the players have felt the pressure. But I think on this occasion, I think it will be a Warrington win.
Well, you only got to look at Widdop when he went to Warrington. He was a fantastic high flyer, wasn't he, in the NRL? Mm-hmm. It never really worked for him, did it?
No. Of course, from a Midlands Rugby League perspective, Matt Davis has moved. Matt Davis of Leicester.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Has moved to Leigh. So, as a Midlands podcast, should be wishing Warrington ill for having let him go.
Yeah. Right, next one. Shaky Wakey at home against Catalan.
Yeah, that's another good game. Catalan will win that.
Yeah, I'll go Catalan. I think Wakefield are probably one of the favourites to drop down this year.
Yeah, you don't really want the French to win, do you? But it's, Catalan for me over that one.
I do want the French to win because I'm an expansionist. So, Catalan.
Right, next one, Levy Salford, the Lee Leopards.
The Lee Leopards.
The most talked about team in Super League this year.
New kids as well.
Yeah, who might well feature 2 Midlands players because Jacob Jones from Birmingham is also in their squad.
Check out this knowledge.
Yeah. Jacob played at least once for the Telford Raiders as a junior.
All right, okay.
When he didn't have anyone else to play for. So, great kid. So, with him and Matt Davis in the team.
Maybe get him on as a special guest one week.
I'm going to go for Lee. Yeah, I think we ought to.
Yeah, definitely. Salford would, I think, great team when they're on fire, and I think they'll beat Lee.
I'd say Lee. New team in Super League. They'll cause a few upsets, I think.
Yeah, I'm going Lee. Hardacre in, Briscoe, Gareth O'Brien, some really good signings. I don't think they will get relegated this year. I think Lee will stay up. Quickly, Lee, has anyone seen the promotion stuff they've been doing?
It's very similar to yours, Karl.
No, it's...
They're copying you.
No, to be fair to them, although their kit it's shite, to be honest with you, I think they've got some big bands on, haven't they?
Is it the Lathams or somebody playing?
No, that's Warrington.
Okay.
So Warrington, their promotion's been really good this year, and Lee have got Scouting for Girls, 40-minute set before the game, plus fire eaters and all that sort of thing.
Wow.
So, that's our prediction. But I think Lee are doing a lot of good stuff off the field actually. Hull KR v Wigan.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go on.
That in future podcasts you score their pre-match entertainment and
That's a good idea.
Could do. Could do that.
Have a league table for best fire eaters.
Hull KR Wigan. Hull KR at home.
Yeah, see, I've got to go Wigan. I support Wigan all the way. So,
yeah, I can't see past Wigan on that one.
No, there's not been much change at Wigan. Ryan Hampshire is back. Luluai's retired. It's not much change at Wigan. Hull KR doing all right in pre-season. Beat your boys, didn't they, at the weekend? I'll go Wigan, but I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a close one, that one.
I'm going to go Hull KR.
I think Hull KR will be up there this year. I think top 6 Hull KR this year.
Yeah, it's a pretty horrible place to play.
Hull in general, or
pretty horrible place.
Yeah, if the wind's blowing off the North Sea at New Craven Park, it's pretty breezy.
Right, we'll go to the other side of Hull then. Hull FC v Cass. Craig, who you got?
Cass. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Hull for me all day. Jake Truman in Cass. I think they'll be down the bottom.
I told you I'm notoriously shit at this.
I think Cass will be down the bottom end of the table this year. So I'm going Hull all day.
I was going to say Cass, but do I go Hull? No, Cass. They always seem consistent every season to me.
Can we go for the draw? I think Hull.
And then last thing we can just quickly touch on. St Helens v Penrith.
Saints all the way.
Well, that's what we're all hoping. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
No,
I've got to say Saints, but
I don't think they'll do it.
I don't.
Not in Australia.
No.
I can't see past Penrith, to be honest with you. But absolutely be rooting for Saints. Craig.
Yeah, same. Like you say, Penrith, different level, really. Different. The old competition's different level, isn't it? But I back Saints. I think if there's a team from the Super League that can do it and would do it in the next couple of years, it's got to be Saints. So good luck to them.
I think if it was over here,
stand a chance.
Potentially go Saints, but with it being down in Australia, I'm going Penrith.
Imagine they've gone early though, haven't they? They've
gone early.
Gone early to
acclimatise,
taking it serious.
Yeah.
That's it for the Super League predictions.
Super League
We just need a jingle. I think Matt said he was going to sing as a jingle.
The only songs he knows got swear words
my
in.
voice.
Brilliant. Okay, so gents, thank you very much for joining us on this first
Thank
interview
you.
on the podcast. It can only go up from here. So I always sort of fire out, like, you know, any sort of any last thing, the afterburners that you want to say before we kind of close it down. You just quickly, you know, couple of minutes.
What do you want to see this year in the Midlands League?
I want to see representative rugby again. I want to see the Midland squad. I want to see these trials that are coming back. To me, that's what made you as a player, I think, and that's your overall goal, isn't it?
So if there's anybody from the RFL watching, that's what we want to see this year.
Origin games, South versus North, those sort of things, and that's what I enjoyed when I played rugby over the time.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Anything from you, Karl?
No.
What's the word?
No, Matt said it perfectly.
Okay. Until next time, take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.